السلام عليكم. كيف حالكم؟ ان شاء الله تمام. معليش عذرا اليوم تاخرنا عليكم، بس ظروف خارج الاراده يعني، لكن ان شاء الله اليوم تستمتعون معنا. ما ودي اطول عليكم. الاخت نور عبد الكريم مديره وحده رياده الاعمال بتعطينا بريف عن البرنامج جلوبال كونكت، وبعدين تعطينا بريف ايضا عن المحاضر اللي معنا اليوم. الله يعطيكم العافيه. شكرا لكم.
السلام عليكم. معلش احنا بنقدم بالعربي بس كل المحاضرة بعدين بالانجليزي. وراح نشرح اسبابها ليه. اولا حياكم الله وعذرا مرة ثانية على التأخير. خارج عن طبعا نطاق التغطية، مشكلة في اللوجيستكس. ودي اعطيكم بريف عن البرنامج لانه الكثير اعطاني هذه الملاحظة انه كان الموقع ما هو واضح، ما موصل الرسالة بطريقة. الموقع بالاخير بيكون لكم، يعني الفي حتكون من قبل المتدربين في البرنامج. خليني اشرح لكم عن البرنامج. البرنامج هو عبارة عن شراكة بين جامعة كاليفورنيا وبين مدينة الملك عبدالعزيز للعلوم والتقنية، متمثلة في برنامج في منظمة جلوبال كونكت وبرنامج بادر. الهدف منها، تسمعون كثير عن مراكز ريادة الأعمال صح؟ مراكز ريادة الأعمال، مبادرات في ريادة الأعمال، برامج تعليمية في ريادة الأعمال، لكن كم مين اللي يقدر يقول لي كم برنامج في ريادة الأعمال التقنية بهاي النيتش ماركت؟ أحد يقدر يذكر؟ في ترى ولا ما في؟ محليا نتكلم إيه عندنا في السعودية؟ نعم، ما عندنا برامج في ريادة الأعمال التقنية حاليا. في طبعا تك كوميرشلايزيشن سنتر، لكن برنامج متخصص في ريادة الأعمال التقنية في الهدف الأساسي منه اللي هو تطوير قدرات رواد الأعمال والبدء في مشاريع مبتكرة. حطوا تحت مبتكرة 1000 سطر، يعني مو التقنية تعتمد على الابتكار بشكل كبير جدا. الهدف الأساسي من هذا البرنامج هو الحصول على رواد الأعمال هذا والحصول على هذه المشاريع. البرنامج يمكن لو شفتوه في الويب سايت مدته 12 شهر، مو معناه يعني بعد ال 12 شهر يتخرج رائد الأعمال ويبدأ يباشر مشروعه، لا. البرنامج خلال ال 12 شهر هذه تبدأ عملية التطوير، تبدأ الامباور للقدرات رائد ورائدة الأعمال، تبدأ عملية اللي هي تطوير المشروع. يعني البرنامج لو تشوفون الحين بعد شوي حنستعرضه مع الدكتور ساندي، البرنامج يمر بمراحل، فيزز، مايلستونز معينة. كل مرحلة من المراحل هذه فيها أهداف مرجوة. طبعا خليني أقول لكم إحنا سوينا هذه آخر رود شو موجودة بالبرنامج، رحنا جدة مع جامعة الملك عبدالعزيز، ورحنا الصوت مو واضح؟ طيب، رحنا جدة مع جامعة الملك عبدالعزيز، ورحنا للشرقية مع سايتك جامعة الملك فهد البترول والمعادن، والحين في الرياض بحول الله. الهدف منه في كل منطقة من مناطق المملكة راح نختار 50 شخص، سيد وسيدة. هذولي خلينا نقول رائدة أعمال ورواد أعمال محتملين بحول الله. هذول ال50 هم اللي راح يستمرون معنا خلال البرنامج هذا، واللي نتوقع منهم بحول الله انهم يطلعون بمشاريع مبتكرة. عملية التقديم تصير عن طريق الويب سايت. بعد الين نهاية ديسمبر راح نبدأ نستقبل الطلبات، آخر وقت استقبال الطلبات اللي من نهاية شهر ديسمبر. بعدها بتبدأ عملية المقابلات واختيار ال50 شخص هذه. ايش عنه البرنامج؟ البرنامج حيضم مزيج من ورش عمل، نشاطات وفعاليات. الهدف منها اولا انه التنوير، وهذا اللي جدا نحتاجه عندنا في المملكه، اللي هي فتح الافاق الى افكار جديده في مجالات التقنيه. طبعا نرجع انه كل هذا تحت مظله التقنيه. افكار تجاريه جديده مبتكره كلها تبدا فيها هذه عمليه اللي خلينا نقول اول فيز بالبرنامج. بعدها عمليه اللي هي بدء خلينا نقول المشاريع التقنيه وعمليه اللينكج والتطوير. أتمنى طبعاً أن برجع بس أقول لكم على حاجة. البرنامج في الأخير لكم وما زال في قيد ما حقول فاينلايزد. ما جبنا شيء من أمريكا وقلنا بنطبقه باكر هني، لا. البرنامج الهدف من هذول ال3 زيارات وإلين ديسمبر عشان نطور منهج للبرنامج معتمد على بيئتنا المحلية. فالفيدباك نحتاجه منكم يا جماعة. يعني إحنا خلينا نقول هذه الورشة العمل هي زي تست للي بنعطيه في المستقبل، فنحتاج منكم الملاحظات حتى نتمكن من تعديل البرنامج. مرة ثانية يعطيكم العافية وعذرا مرة ثانية للتأخير. أنا إيميلي موجود وحوزع عليكم بعدين البزنس كارد إذا تبغون تتواصلون معي شخصيا، وكمان عن طريق الويب سايت اللي هو سايت برونور. أحب أعرفكم على اللي ماسك البرنامج من منظمة Global Connect. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Sanford, who's leading the program from Global Connect part. Dr. Sanford is going to give us the workshop about the entrepreneurial mindset. إن شاء الله يعني بحول الله you will enjoy the workshop. Any question, we are here. Thank you.
Thank you. Salam alaikum. No, this is in the United States, this would be my Saturday night. So the fact that you've chosen me for your entertainment on your weekend night means I've got to be pretty good to keep you awake, or you're going to say, I've got better things to do. But of course, one of the interesting things is entrepreneurs are willing to work hard, so I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to come here on what is your weekend evening. What we're really doing this evening, and what we've done in 2 other cities, is really trying to stimulate entrepreneurship in this particular region. We know we have a lot of bright people in the room, and I suspect that all of you have lots of ideas for how you might start a company. And as a matter of fact, as I'm talking tonight, we're going to be doing some exercises. So you might think about, what is an idea that I have? Because I'm going to ask you to process that idea. I'm going to ask you to think about whether that idea is a high potential business opportunity, and I'm going to ask you to take a look at it. So you might just start those wheels rolling as I'm speaking to say, what is my idea? Who is my market? Who is my customer? How might I accomplish this particular objective? Because we're going to look at that this evening. But before we talk about that, let me tell you a little bit about the organization that I'm from. We at Global Connect are an applied research and consultancy associated with the University of California. I do not work there full-time. I work there half-time because my other interests are entrepreneurial interests. I don't know how to talk to entrepreneurs unless I was an entrepreneur myself. And I'll talk a little bit about my own entrepreneurial pursuits probably over the course of this particular program. What we do is we try to partner with regions around the world to help them understand how to grow more companies, accelerate the development of technology clusters, and then help connect them with other regions of the world where they can engage in international trade, international knowledge sharing, etc. So we do this through driving global alliance relationships. And I want to start out by saying something about entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystems. Think for a moment about building a home. If you go to build a home, you don't just hire a general contractor who begins putting up your home. You hire an architect, and the architect designs the home. So one thing I'm not here to do is to tell you this is the way that we do it in Silicon Valley. This is the way we do it in San Diego. This is the way we do it in Boston. This is the way we do it in Austin. Why? Because if I were building a home here would not look like a home in the Northeast. It would not look like a home in California. If I'm an architect, then I have to pay attention to the surroundings in which the home is located. I have to make sure that the home is conducive to its environment. Therefore, what we're here to talk about is what are best practices, because all architects share best practices. The home has to go up and it has to stand. It has to have the proper infrastructure. It doesn't matter whether the home is in California or Saudi Arabia. Architecture is architecture from the standpoint of the stability of the building, etc. But then we vary the looks of the building. So the way this innovation ecosystem will look once it's completed will be very different than other parts of the world. The other thing, in terms of just as an aside, my style, I want you to challenge me. I want you to ask me questions. I want you, if you'd like to, disagree with me, because that's how we will have a good exchange. And that's how you will learn from this process, and that's how I learn from this process, because I need to understand more about Saudi culture to make this particular project a success. So we do lots of different things with respect to regions around the world. We've worked in Latin America, we've worked in Asia, we've worked in the United States. There's plenty of regions in the United States that are economically depressed. They don't create entrepreneurs. I happen to be fortunate to come from a region that creates lots of entrepreneurs. So we try to share best practices. We try to connect regions to one another so that they can understand and learn from each other. And then we have ways that we try to assess what is your current innovation capacity? How do we determine what's the capacity for starting companies within this particular region of the world? We have experienced people that work on our team. Almost everyone on our team has had entrepreneurial experiences. In my case, I've had companies in the digital media industry, the healthcare information industry, other software companies, and because my family was in retail, I was the founder of a chain of stores called the Healthy Back Store, where we sell orthopedic supplies. And as a kid, I came from an entrepreneurial family, and my father said, if you want to get something, then you have to go out and you have to build something. He never reached in his wallet and gave me something. What he gave me was the advice that if you want to go get something, you want to buy a new bicycle, then go out there and find a way to earn money. So I was fortunate to be born into an entrepreneurial family, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs in Saudi Arabia, and you come from those families. So what we want to do is give you an opportunity to express your entrepreneurial talents. What we're really trying to do through this process of launching this workshop, talking to people around the country, is finding who are the high potential entrepreneurs. And one of the things I'll talk about when I talk about the entrepreneurial mindset is that we think there's a big difference between a manager, a small business person, and an entrepreneur. And I will tell you what I think the differences are, and again, you can disagree with me. And to promote a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation within the region, and then for the Baader staff, for KAXT to serve as an advocate for entrepreneurs within the region. In terms of technology entrepreneurship begins with discovery. And so we look for where those discoveries come from. And they typically come from universities. They come from research and development organizations. And in the case of really some young kids today, they come from up here because they've lived with computers their whole life. They understand mobile applications. They understand what they're looking for in terms of social networks. So we're seeing just an abundance of entrepreneurial talent around the world. The idea of entrepreneurship education is to focus that talent. And then we're in the Baader Center for Technology Incubation. So after we have a discovery, we have to determine if that discovery is relevant. So we don't call it proof of concept, we call it proof of relevance. Is there a market for this discovery? Is this basic research that's been done at a university or something that's been done in a research lab? Does it have relevance to the market? Can it be productized? Can it be made into something that people want to buy because it solves an important problem that they're facing? And then, of course, the final stage is accelerating the company, providing sufficient capital in the later stages to allow that company to grow. In the US, we call it the hockey stick, because what we like to see is that revenue starts out like this, and then revenue begins to increase like that. And we like to show that to investors. So what are the components of this particular program? We're starting tonight with entrepreneurial development. We're going to do some additional workshops, which I will describe in a few minutes. The other important thing, as I mentioned, is to be relevant to the region. To be relevant to the region means that we must train people within this region to carry on the work that we're doing. It isn't any good for me to come here, for my colleagues to come here, talk to you about entrepreneurship, leave, and then what's left? we have to teach people within this region, how do you educate entrepreneurs? And the best types of educators for entrepreneurs tend to be entrepreneurs. What I always like to say is because they've experienced the beads of sweat on their forehead about making payroll, managing cash flow, finding customers. And it's very difficult to relate to that if all you've done is teach theory. We also think that one important component cross-culturally around the world is creating roundtables where entrepreneurs help entrepreneurs. And I'll talk about that. And then we're going to have some staff soon come to San Diego for a Global Connect Fellowship in which they will interact with people from around the world that are coming to a conference to talk about what creates technology clusters within particular regions. All of you, by the way, the last bullet point, all of you are eligible to attend an Entrepreneurship Academy at the University of California, which is held at the University of California, Davis. If you pay your plane ticket and you pay your hotel, Baader is kind enough to pay the registration. So there will be a way that you can sign up for these programs and you can go to the US to learn more about entrepreneurship. The workshops that we're going to do, we've done already 2. This is my last. We've been in Jeddah, we've been in Dammam, and now we're in Riyadh. And we're delivering the first workshops on the entrepreneurial mindset. Here's some of the topics which are tentative and which we're going to cover. Entrepreneurial marketing. I think everyone knows the importance of marketing. You'll also see up there something called the power of numbers. Power of numbers means that, for example, if you're a scientist, you need to have a basic understanding of financial management. You don't need to be a financial manager, but you're going to work with a financial manager. And you want to be able to ask intelligent questions, and you want to understand the core metrics that are driving your business. I like to say that the finance within a business is setting the business to music. It's writing the score. It's showing what the results are. The reason why we pay so much attention to dollars is because dollars are an unequivocal way to determine the health of this particular organization. It's like a doctor taking a pulse. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're driving blind, you don't know what the finances are, then you may not be intelligent enough to know what people are doing with the money that you've raised. And then one thing that's critical for all entrepreneurs is being able to stand up, be enthusiastic, speak with conviction, and sell your idea. So it's critical that you can make a winning presentation. If you can't make a winning presentation, it's very difficult to enthuse investors to invest in your company. I think I've talked enough about this with regard to the entrepreneurial roundtables. It's really to put together a board of advisors and put together people. So for example, if you don't know much about marketing, we will provide a marketing domain expert to work with you. If you don't know much about operations, we'll provide you with a mentor to work on operations. What we want to do is provide the people that become your virtual board of advisors and hold meetings once a month where you can consult with them because they've been there, they've done that, they understand the challenge that are associated with growing a company. I think I've described this enough. Here's the 4-day workshop. There's going to be one in May 2012. And that's it with the overview of the program. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes?
You said innovation capacity. Does this mean containing the risk that comes out of the innovation process itself?
We're going to talk about that, but absolutely. Managing risk is critical for any venture. As we'll talk about it, there is no entrepreneur. People talk about entrepreneurs as people that like risk. They don't like risk. They like to manage risk. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, now let me see, I raised $3 million from my investor. How can I lose it? What can I do to lose the money that they gave me? Because I'm a risk lover. I just love risk. They like to manage risk. And so part of learning to be an entrepreneur is understanding how to effectively manage risk. So let's go and let's start the talk on the entrepreneurial mindset. Yes?
I have a question about the academy, entrepreneur academy. Period and
You have to hold 2 microphones.
the academy period and the certification. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, the Academy is a program that's it's a week long. It's held at the University of California, Davis. It's taught by some leading experts in entrepreneurship, and it exposes you to all elements of the entrepreneurial process. It's like a mini MBA in entrepreneurship. And
Period of that will be.
there's actually programs that take place routinely throughout the year. We believe there will be a program in May 2012. When you go to the website, and the Baader staff can direct you to that website, you just register as a Saudi, and you will see that you won't have any registration fee. What you've got to pay for is getting to the United States, and you've got to pay for your hotel and meals and other expenses.
And each program will be 4 weeks? Or
No, I think it's, I don't see Noor, I believe it's a 1 to 2 week program, but don't quote me on it. When you look, they will give you the link for the academy, and you can take a look at it. That's not offered by our university. That's offered by the system, the University of California system, but it's the Davis campus, and Davis is outside of San Francisco. Let me just switch our presentation. I don't even have a virus package on my Mac, because people don't create viruses for Macs. Haven't had a virus package since I went to a Mac. Had all kinds of viruses with Bill Gates' computers. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what are the desired outcomes. And I want you to hold me responsible for this. In other words, this is your weekend evening. You're sitting here, you're very attentive. You expect that there's going to be an outcome that you're going to derive from spending your time here, because you could also be spending your time at the coffee shop, you could be enjoying your friends, etc., and you're saying, what am I doing sitting here? So what we want to do is, first of all, the front end of this presentation is not practical, because we're going to talk about a mindset. We're going to talk about how entrepreneurs perceive the world. There's nothing you can take away from that other than thinking, do I sound like an entrepreneur? You came here with all of your perceptions, all of your socialization since you've been little children, and you're sitting here now. The only thing that's practical about the front end of this is to say, do I look like an entrepreneur? Do I think like an entrepreneur? Because I can't change your mindset. What I can do is, if you have the mindset of an entrepreneur, then I can help you improve that mindset. I can help you learn how to execute on that particular mindset. Then we're going to get into frameworks. Then we're going to get to the practical. We're going to talk about things like, if you have an idea, how do you determine if it's a business opportunity? You ought to cycle through more ideas in your career than business opportunities. So you ought to be thinking about lots of ideas. Everyone has lots of ideas, but what happens with people that lose a lot of money is they just grab an idea, they go forward right away, they start spending money before they've really determined, do they have a business opportunity? Is there a market? Is there a customer? Will they pay for your service? Even if they pay for your service, will it pay back the investors that have paid you to create this service? Because I always laugh when entrepreneurs tell me, we'll make it up in volume. When you actually look at their financials, they're losing money on every single transaction, and they say, we'll make it up in volume. It's like 100 times a negative number is a negative number. So you don't make it up in volume. And by the way, just as an aside, the reason why we teach finance is many entrepreneurs don't know the costs of doing business. They just set a price, and they assume that that price is covering all of their costs. The heat, the lights, the employees, everything. And I've seen more businesses fail because, again, the entrepreneur is starting out at a price point that doesn't even cover their general and administrative expenses. It doesn't even cover the cost of developing the product. So again, there is no such concept of make it up in volume. The other thing is, what are the skills and resources you'll need? Skills can be acquired. Resources can be acquired. So that's what you're here to learn. What are the skills I'm going to need? And for those that I don't have, where are the gaps? And how do I fill those gaps? And you don't fill those gaps by learning everything yourself. You fill those gaps by building a team. Because there's lots of smart people that would like to help you. You may not be, for example, someone in the room, you may say, I don't think I'm the person that can start a business, but I probably am the person that can assist in the startup of a business if somebody in this room has an idea. We're going to talk about how to design effective business models. We're going to talk about business models as being very distinct from business plans. Business plans are on paper. Business plans can be generated like that. The hard work is determining what is the business model. The business plan is merely a sales document. And I have seen more elegant business plans that have poor ideas associated with them. Because anybody can research a market, anybody can put beautiful graphs in a presentation, etc. But if the foundation is not there for a solid business, the business plan is irrelevant. We're going to talk about value propositions. You ought to be able to succinctly tell an investor what is your value proposition. And you ought to be able to tell it in 1 to 2 sentences. Because if you're in front of a decision maker that's either an investor or a potential customer, they want to know what is the value you're offering, and they don't want to listen to you. They don't have a half hour to listen to you. Sometimes you get 5 to 10 minutes with a high-level individual. And if you can't pitch them properly, goodbye. They've got too much time to spend with you. So if you're kind of stuttering, you don't know what you're saying, you don't sound very clear, then I've got better things to do. They may be very kind and say, come back in 2 years when you really have a decent idea. But as I always tell entrepreneurs, if it's an important person you're in front of, you may never get back to them. Because they may only give you 1 shot. And finally, what's really critical is a compelling vision. And we'll talk about that. So let's start off with how we define entrepreneurship. You'll notice one thing about it. It has nothing to do with starting a business. So the creation, the recognition, and sometimes I say the relentless pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. Tell me what that means. Anyone? Without regard to resources currently controlled.
Making something out of nothing.
Making something out of nothing? How?
I don't have enough resources, but I come up with an idea that
So how are you going to get resources?
I show the idea to sponsors.
Exactly. So in other words, here's the big difference between a small business person and an entrepreneur. A small business person typically reaches in their pocket, they pull out 1,000 reals, and they say, now what can I do with 1,000 reals? Or maybe they go to what we call love money. Love money is mommy or daddy, and they love you. And so they're willing to give you a little money because they love you. Not necessarily because you have the best idea in the world, but they love you. So you've got a few more reals. And then you look, what can I do with this as the small business person? The entrepreneur is not concerned at all with what they have in their pocket. The entrepreneur thinks there is an abundance of resources all over their region to start their business. So what's their job? To define the opportunity and to what?
Build the business model.
To build the business model.
Team up with someone.
Pardon?
Team up with someone. Build the team.
Build the team and go out and get the resources. I could stand here till 10 p.m. tonight and I could tell you one business after another where somebody went out with nothing in their pocket, and they found $10 million. They found what I call gray hairs, people, very senior level people who can help you with your business. And they just relentlessly pursued them. They wanted a top-notch engineer. They had to take a top-notch engineer out of a major corporation who's sitting there, talented. They went to a top-notch engineering school. They're one of the best coders around. They're making a lot of money. They're sitting in their Herman Miller Aeron chair. They're coding. The company is paying them a lot of money. And you come along with nothing. And you offer them a challenge. And they get up from their job and they go join your company. I just recently heard that Domino's was bought by the largest private equity firm in the world, the Carlyle Group. When Tom Montague started Domino's, he wasn't thinking about one pizza shop like a small business person. He doesn't think about one pizza shop. He thinks about 10,000 pizza shops. We're just starting with the first. The small business person, if I can just get one pizza shop, I can make enough money to buy myself a decent car, a decent house, and have a decent life. The entrepreneur is thinking, how can I build a model that I can put down just one after another and make lots of pizza shops? So if you study the entrepreneur at time one, they all look the same. Here's the small business person, here's the entrepreneur. Except the entrepreneur is never thinking about the one unit. The entrepreneur is not thinking about selling one product. They're thinking about building a large enterprise. So fundamentally, when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's a creative act. It's a human act. It's not a business act. It's a creative act. It first is crystallized up here, and it's executed out there. So it begins here, and then it gets executed. And it's fundamentally about coming up with a solid vision that's going to drive the commitment of others to join you. And again, if you're a great entrepreneur, you've got a great vision, and I'm going to talk about some of the visions that I think are great visions, you're going to attract people. A colleague and I did a study a while ago of 120 high-technology startups in the Southern California region. And we asked the entrepreneurs, how did you attract your critical employees? And what they told us was, number one, it wasn't the salary, it wasn't the stock options, it was the challenge, it was the vision. This is what they wrote. Without the vision, they couldn't have attracted these people. So it requires a vision, and it requires a large vision, not a small vision. And then you gather, you minimize, and you marshal resources. So for example, here's a Saudi entrepreneur, Osama Bakor Nato. I'm sure if I may have messed up the whole pronunciation of his name. But as he says, it's very important to have the right mindset if you plan to succeed. People come to me for advice about starting a business, and the first thing I ask them, are they ready to make sacrifices? You have to make a lot of sacrifices. For example, you might be working on an evening like tonight. So you're starting in the right place. You've chosen your weekend evening to come to work, because you might be working 80 hours a week to get this started. What I want to get across is no one ever starts a business to get rich. The people who start a business that say, I want to get rich, they never make it. Because getting rich is not a motivation that's ever going to sustain the level of effort that you need to be an entrepreneur. What you need to do is have a passion, have a commitment to solve a problem, to have a purpose that propels you to keep going forward. And if the outcome is you get rich, great. So let me do a little mindset exercise with you. We're not in a great economy. There's a lot of global problems with respect to the economic condition. A lot of people who are not entrepreneurs look out there in the world and they say, opportunity is nowhere. I can't see any opportunities. I don't even have a job. Do you see anything different in the words that are up there than opportunity is nowhere? What do you see?
The collapse of economy will build a new economy.
No. Just concentrate just strictly on the English that's up there. Do you see anything different between opportunity is nowhere?
Excuse me. You can say no here, now here, and no way.
Exactly. This is what the entrepreneur sees. He doesn't see opportunity as nowhere. He sees opportunity is now here. Same person, looking at the diagram. The entrepreneur looks around the world and they go, there's so many opportunities, I don't know which one I'm going to pursue first. And the person who's not the entrepreneur goes, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to get a job. I'm looking for an employer to hire me, but I'm not finding anybody. It seems like there's no opportunities. And the entrepreneur wakes up every morning thinking about, I don't know which opportunity to pursue first. There's research that's been done at Stanford University by a famous psychologist by the name of Carol Dweck. She talks about mindsets, and she talks about intelligence. And she does experiments with young children. And she says that some people treat their intelligence like a fixed asset. I was born with this amount of IQ, and that with this amount of IQ, I can do this. Persons with growth mindsets say, I was born with a certain IQ, but IQ is like a rubber band. I can stretch it. I can learn. And what she does, by the way, is she sets a little kid down. From very young age, she sets a little kid down. She gives them problems to do. Problems that are beyond what their age level is. And she watches with cameras what the child does with the problem. And she sees children, for example, that are working on a problem, and they're getting very, very frustrated with that problem. And so what they do is she walks in and she says, Osama, how you coming on that problem? And Osama says, oh, this problem is way too hard. I mean, can you give me something a little easier? I can't do this. I'm giving up, okay? And there's another child, Helmi. She walks in, she talks to Helmi. Helmi's working on the problem. Half hour goes by, she walks in, she talks to Helmi, and Helmi says, would you give me do not give me the answer. I don't want the answer. I'm going to continue to work on this. She comes back an hour. How you coming, Helmi? I'm continuing to work on this problem. It's a tough problem. I'm not sure I'm going to get it, but I'm going to keep on trying. And she thinks that this shapes two kinds of individuals broadly. Obviously, we pulled the poles apart and we said there's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. And she sees children that approach the world differently. These children become adults and they approach the world differently. So you see things like intelligence is a static asset for people that have a fixed mindset. People with a growth mindset, I can grow. Everyone's heard of Michael Jordan, the famous basketball player? I'll bet you don't know that Michael Jordan didn't make the cut for his high school basketball team. He never made it to his high school basketball team. With a fixed mindset, would have walked away, dejected, I didn't make the team, Mommy, I didn't make the team. Michael Jordan goes, I'll show him. You know, I have one friend who's an entrepreneur and he says revenge is a very big motivator. You know, someone tells you you can't do something and that sets you to say, I'll show you whether I can't do something. But the person with the fixed mindset says, I give up, I can't do this, it's too hard. So people with growth mindsets like Michael Jordan go, I can do this. I'm going to set a goal to do this. I'm going to practice, I'm going to practice, and I'm going to practice. And with that practice, I'm going to be better than anyone. And they believe in their own capabilities to succeed. We call that self-efficacy. People use the term self-confidence. Self-efficacy comes from also the work of Carol Dweck and another person by the name of Albert Bandura at Stanford. Self-efficacy means that they have found individuals have the capacity to calculate the probability between their effort and their performance. So if I put forth 1 unit of effort, how many units of performance am I going to get out? And it's domain specific. So I say, I want to start a mobile applications company. If I work hard at this, will I be able to create a mobile app? If you think you have no capacity to do that, you have low self-efficacy. You may have high self-efficacy to do something else. So your job is to kind of find the domain within your life where you believe in your own capabilities, where you think, if I put forth this effort, I'm going to achieve performance. And people that have high self-efficacy continue to persist, continue to persist, continue to persist, and eventually they outpace the person that gives up. Take a look at this list on skills required by entrepreneurs. What do you see in terms of the order? Just the sort of order from top to bottom of the skills that are listed.
Priority.
A priority. How would you classify the skills on the top versus the skills toward the bottom?
The most important is on the top.
Yeah, you'll notice that a lot of the functional skills in business are toward the bottom. Why? They're not important. It's not important to know how to manage finances. It's not important to know how to market.
They are based from general aspects to specific ones.
Right. What it's basically saying is that you can go out and you can find people that can do human resources management. You can find people that can do marketing. You can find people that can do finance. And if you're capable of doing those things yourself, that's wonderful. But the more difficult skills are first. The most difficult skill is, can I come up with a compelling vision? Many people create what looks like a great company when they start out, but they can't attract resources around them. Why? Because they don't have a vision that propels people to leave the situation they're in and join you. Then you're experiencing problems with cash flow. You're experiencing problems with customers. You're not getting the traction that you need. You're getting disappointed in your results. What do you have to do? You have to learn to motivate yourself. So when the morning comes and the alarm goes off, the person that can't motivate self goes, boy, I'm not going to work this morning. Things are terrible. You know what? I think I'm just going to stay in bed. I'll watch, matter of fact, there's some good movies on television. I'm going to stay in bed. The entrepreneur knows that what I got to do is get up, get moving, get to the office, and start not only motivating me, but motivating my employees to keep going, to keep pursuing, etc. So those are the tough ones. And then we get to things like planning and goal setting. You have to know how to plan. You have to know how to strategize. You have to know how to set goals. And then relationship building. You've probably heard of the concept of emotional intelligence. People with high emotional intelligence tend to be good relationship builders. You have to be a good relationship builder to be the lead entrepreneur. You could be a software coder that sits in a room and codes all day. But you better have someone on your team that knows how to build relationships, because relationships, especially in this part of the world, even less so in the United States. You know, the United States, we always say, a meeting looks like this. It's an arrow going right to the objective. And a meeting in the Middle East might look like this. You know why? Because in a meeting in the Middle East, maybe someone wants to understand, who are you? What family do you come from? How do you think? Can I trust you, etc. And in the US, let's get right to the objective of the meeting. So it differs, but you got to be able to build a relationship. And then problem solving and decision making, then we could continue. This is not an exhaustive list. We could continue to list, but the functional skills are the skills that are absolutely necessary, but they won't get you a startup. They won't grow a business. The things, if you're a manager and you're entering a business that already exists, then you can become a marketer. You can walk in and there's already a marketing department. You can decide your track is to become a product manager. Someone hires you to become an assistant product manager, and you move up to being an associate product manager. Then they give you an entire brand to run. You don't have to build it. With an entrepreneurial experience, you have to build it from start. So the whole thing you'll discover when you start a company is it'll take you outside your comfort zone. You'll have to do things that you're not used to doing. And through that, you're going to learn. And if you have, again, a growth mindset, and I don't think there's anyone in this room with a fixed mindset, then you're going to want to grow. You're going to want to get outside your comfort zone. And you're going to get nervous, and there are going to be butterflies in your stomach, and you're going to have to pitch. For example, I've seen scientists that have to pitch a business model. They didn't learn business models. They have to show a set of financials. They didn't learn finance. They didn't go to business school. And it gets them nervous. But because they're smart, because they can adopt a goal to learn this, they can stand up and they can do it effectively. So these are some of the characteristics associated with entrepreneurship. This is the orientation of the entrepreneur. What does the first one mean? Autonomous. Autonomous. Yes?
Freedom to make your own decisions.
Freedom to make your own decisions. In other words, I don't ask for freedom to make my own decisions. I take the freedom to make my own decisions. I act autonomously. I don't wait for approval. I don't wait for permission. I just go and I do it. Innovative. Does anybody know what innovation is defined as? How do you know when something's innovative?
Coming with something different.
Something different. Okay.
It must be new.
Okay. Anyone else? A discovery is new. Is that an innovation? No. What if you've got a discovery, how does it become an innovation? Pardon?
If it solves a problem or give a value.
Okay, so he just said if it solves a problem or gives value.
It's the way how you implement the discovery.
Yes. What we talk about is an invention is not an innovation. An innovation is taking an invention or a discovery and finding a relevant marketplace, productizing it, so that it is the application of an invention to a commercial market. There's a buyer. There's somebody that wants it. I don't know if you're aware of this, but do you know that Xerox Corporation created the graphical user interface? They created the mouse, and they created the computer that Steve Jobs eventually built. He saw it at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. Xerox Corporation. They built it. Steve Jobs, in case you wondered, he didn't build the graphical user interface. He didn't build the mouse. Xerox had it. And Xerox didn't know what they had. They didn't know how to turn the invention in a research center into a product. Steve Jobs just happened to have taken a tour of Xerox PARC facility, and he saw this thing, and he thought, wow, this is revolutionary. And he built the Macintosh. Remember, the first Apple was what's called an Apple IIe. It didn't have a graphical user interface. He happened to just take a tour. So ideas come from sometimes looking at other people's inventions. Do you know how HP developed the inkjet printer? A scientist at HP burned coffee. He burned coffee. He looked on the bottom of his coffee pot and he saw the coffee was burned onto the pot. And he was working on inks and other kinds of things. And how can you get ink to go onto a piece of paper but not be wet? You don't want the ink to come out and it's all wet and it's got to dry. And he was working on this problem. And so he figured out that if he could apply heat, intense heat, to the ink, he could get it to dry. And then, of course, they had to develop the jets and everything else. But that's what it came from. 3M, the Post-it note.
Up your voice, please.
Pardon?
Up your voice because they
Up my voice?
Yeah.
I think I talk like a New Yorker. I'm from New York. I thought you were going to tell me, would you shut up, slow down your voice. You know, talk a little slower. Talk a little, you know, I'm a New Yorker. I moved to California 25 years ago because I don't like the snow. But I brought, it's tough to take the New Yorker. You can take the New Yorker out of California. You can't take, you know, the New Yorker out of the person. Risk-taking, I've already talked to you. Entrepreneurs are not, they don't love risk. They take a calculated risk. They manage risk. They're proactive, obviously. I don't think I need to define what proactivity is. And by God, they're competitive. They want to win. They want to win not by creating a win-lose situation. They want to create win-win situations. Here are the roles that you have to play if you're an entrepreneur. Number one, we call it framing the challenge. Does anyone know what the vision was for Apple Corporation when Steve Jobs founded the company? It's still the vision today. As a matter of fact, I recently read in Business Week that because of his death, they're going to start putting out in the United States, maybe you'll see it in Saudi Arabia, some of the original Apple commercials that I remember when they first founded the company. Anybody know what his vision was? Pardon? No, it had nothing to do with a PC. No, nothing to do with computers. Never even when it came to the vision, he wasn't talking computers at all. Because remember, iPod's not a, it's a kind of a computer, but it's not something you compute with. Think Differently was one of their later campaigns, and you're correct, but it wasn't the vision.
Understand your customer.
Nope.
It's about making things beautiful and I want to.
It is, but that wasn't the vision.
Given the consumer thing they don't want.
Nope. That's not, all these things are not quite compelling enough. It's what, as a matter of fact, Baader is trying to do in Saudi Arabia. His vision was to change the world. Change the world. That's all he said. We are going to change the world. Would you like to join me in changing the world? Now think, you're a young engineer. You can go, someone says to you, well, would you like to build an integrated circuit? I'm already building integrated circuits. I work for Unisys Corporation. We build large mainframe computers. I design integrated circuits. That's not compelling enough. Now you say to someone that's young, would you like to be a part of changing the world? Yeah, I'd like to change the world. That's kind of ambitious. Now, how are you going to do it? We're going to bring the power of computing to the average individual, because the power of computing resides in large transaction processing environments, banks, etc. They use mainframe computers. You, as an individual, didn't have the power of computing. You didn't have the power to put information on your desktop. So he said, once we give people the power to manage and manipulate and access information, watch out, we're going to change the world. And by the way, what were some of the most original commercials with Apple? They were about revolution. The theme was revolution. It showed scenes of revolution because everyone at Apple believed we're creating a revolution. And in fact, Steve Jobs did create a revolution. It's about absorbing uncertainty. There are very, very extreme rates of uncertainty within a venture. And your job is to absorb that uncertainty. What does it mean to absorb it? Bring it under control. Show that you think you may not, as a matter of fact, be managing it effectively, but you are absorbing it. And what do I mean by that? I always say to an entrepreneur, when you leave the house in the morning, it's showtime. It's showtime. In other words, you can't walk in the office with your head down, dejected. Oh, they turned me down again. You know what? I know you're all working hard. I know you left your nice jobs, etc. I don't think we're going to be going anywhere. I don't know if this thing is going to succeed. I thought I was going to change the world. I haven't even changed my next door neighbor. I don't know. I don't know what we should do. What do you suggest? No, you can't do that. Because as the entrepreneur, you got to walk in the organization, you have to absorb all of it, and you have to say, someone goes, are we going to get our next round of capital? Of course we're going to get our next round of capital. How much money do we have left? 2 days. 2 days of money. Am I going to get a paycheck? Of course you're going to get a paycheck. What do you think you're here for? I'll get you a paycheck. You've got to absorb uncertainty. You've got to show the people in your organization that you're managing all of these things. And then when you go home, you might go, oh my God. Then you can fall apart. You can tell your significant other because she's ready to divorce you. I have a friend who's almost lost his wife because he lost his fortune and the next thing he was going to lose was his wife. Or if you're a woman starting a business and your husband is depending on it, you might lose your husband. But nevertheless, if you've got a good marriage, you have a good relationship, you open up, that's when you open up, you emote, and you say, boy, we could be in trouble. But you don't do it in front of your employees. Leaders have to absorb uncertainty. Entrepreneurs have to absorb uncertainty. I'll give you an example. In the US, there were major innovations lost to the Japanese. They were lost, although the Americans were the ones that innovated with these particular ideas. One of them, the video cassette recorder. The video cassette recorder was made by Ampex Corporation. And eventually, the license for the VCR was sold to Matsushita Corporation. So if you bought a Pioneer VCR, you bought a JVC VCR, you bought a Sony VCR, if you turned it around and you looked at the label on the back, it would say license from Matsushita Corporation. Now, why did they get the license when the Americans at Ampex Corporation created the VCR? Because the VCR at that time was about this big, that wide. And the team that presented in front of senior management at Ampex Corporation was asked, can you solve the problem? This is too big. This is too bulky. We need it miniaturized. The project manager and the team said, we're lost. We don't know how to do this. And you know what happens? By the way, there were studies done. Every innovation that was lost to the Japanese that was started by the Americans, when executives feel that you're not absorbing uncertainty, they just shut the plumbing off, cash flow stops, shut down this project, ship it off to whoever wants it. It's not going anywhere. And they found that the innovations that were won were innovations where when they interviewed the project manager said, I didn't know what we were going to be doing. But when I got in front of management, I said, we'll solve the problem. Stick with it. Keep supporting us. We're under control. He or she absorbed the uncertainty. And then path clearing. Getting rid of all the points of resistance. Your employees are going to go out, they're going to talk to friends, and the friends are going to say, oh, I've got a real nice job at Saudi Aramco. How you doing? Well, I didn't get a paycheck this week. How come? Well, we kind of ran out of money. What are you, a nutcase or something? You're sitting in the company and you're not making any money? Well, we're going to do it. How do you know you're going to do it? Because the person I work for is knocking down every barrier in our way. He just knocks away boulders, he knocks away trees, and he finds the trail. And so he'll get us there. And as I've said, you've got to build commitment. You've got to inspire a team. You've got to get them to expend horrendous amounts of energy to build something. I go into an entrepreneurial company, I could be there at this time in the US on a Saturday night. All the software engineers are there coding. Sunday, they're there coding. They're working 80 hours a week. They're pushing that product out, etc. The reason why they do that is because the person that's leading them has a strong vision that's compelling them to move forward. One of the things I want to point out, by the way, like I talked about Ampex, entrepreneurship is just not about people who start a business. There are entrepreneurs in big companies. I don't know if any of you have heard of a product called SnapTax. SnapTax is a product developed by Quicken, Intuit, and it was a product developed in Intuit Corporation by a team of 5 people. They were given very few resources, and they were developing a product that could compete with another product that Intuit manufactured called TurboTax. So Intuit was having a team work on a product that there were engineers that thought they could introduce to the market, which might cannibalize one of their leading products. Basically what it is it's the capability to take what's called the W-2, which is basically your statement of your wages earned, the amount of taxes you paid, etc., for you to take your cell phone, shoot a picture of that, and fill out what's called a 1040-EZ, which is the easy tax form. And doing it just through taking a snapshot of your W-2s that you get. And then SnapTax just can create your tax return. They're a team inside of a large company. They weren't given the resources of the large company. They were given very few resources. They were what we call in a lot of companies skunk works. And the same thing, the project manager believed in the idea, the project manager believed that they could get this product off the ground, and it's been one of the most successful product launches in Intuit's history. So when you read a book about entrepreneurship, you'll see there's corporate entrepreneurs, there's social entrepreneurs, and there's entrepreneurs who start for-profit companies. If you're going to have a vision, you better give it some life. So you need someone that does have a compelling way to present something. So when someone said to Steve Jobs, what are you going to do? He didn't say, oh, we're going to change the world. Change the world. You have to say, we're going to change the world. We're going to make the world a different place. It's language, it's conviction, it's passion. It's the way that you present yourself. Now, not everyone has that skill. So typically what most entrepreneurial companies do is they find the individual that has that skill. Sometimes it's not the lead entrepreneur. I go to a lot of presentations where there's somebody in marketing presenting the vision of the company and a chief scientific officer is seated in the room. They're the innovator. They were the one that came up with the idea, but they don't like presenting in front of a room. So when questions come that are highly technical, the chief marketing officer or some other partner within the business turns to the chief scientific officer and says, can you explain how our black box works? So you don't have to have this skill, but you better find someone that does have this skill. So here's Amazon's vision. Amazon's vision, again, nothing in the vision about selling books. Go look at, if you can get a copy of Business Week from about 2 weeks ago, there was an excellent article on Amazon. Retailers are scared silly about Amazon because they're gobbling up every market they enter. They started with books, but you go across Amazon, they're selling everything. They had a diagram in Business Week that was astounding. They showed Amazon here and products, just every product imaginable being now managed by Amazon. How did they get there? Because they said, we're going to be the most customer-centric company in the world. What did that mean? That meant when you ordered your book initially, you got an email. It said, "Thank you for your order for your book." Then, when someone was packing it, you got another email. It said, "Your book is being packed." Then, when they were shipping it, they said, "Your book has been shipped, and here's the FedEx tracking number or the UPS tracking number." And then when you got the book, it came in a nice box with a little smile face, and it was exactly what you wanted, and it was cheaper than you could buy at any bookstore. So by the way, Borders, a big book chain in the United States, just filed bankruptcy. And they think the other booksellers in the United States, unfortunately, are going to go away. Great companies can do that. Unfortunately, they wipe out other jobs, but that's what a guy by the name of Adam Smith thinks is basically destruction and reconstruction. Changing an industry, changing the dynamics of an industry. So, what's your vision? What do you want to accomplish? And how will you express it to others? And as I mentioned, you got to appeal to a common purpose. A vision is about a common purpose. Regardless of where you go in the world, principles never change. You know, one of the best-selling books in the world, I think it is the best-selling book other than probably the Quran and the Bible. And it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's been translated into like 39 languages. Why? Because principles are timeless. So when you create a company around timeless principles, things that everyone can relate to. And then your job is to align all of your business practices with those principles. I used to be chief operating officer of a large corporate law firm in Southern California. And I was brought in, not as an attorney, I don't have a law background, I was brought in as a business person to create a new strategy for this corporate law firm. And one of the things that we focused on was customer responsiveness. So you can say we're going to be responsive to customers, and you can go talk about being responsive to customers, and you can explain that, etc. But the first employee that doesn't know what that means you're not being responsive to customers. So what did that mean for us? It meant that a call coming into the law firm is picked up on the 3rd ring. When they get the call, an attorney must be available if it's a new client to speak to that, always. Never say we'll call you back. We will find someone who is responsible. So we had attorneys on call. We knew who was available to speak to a new client. If it was an existing client, we told the attorney, you must get back to that client by the end of this business day. If you're in court, then your secretary has to return the call and say, Helmy is in court. He apologizes for not being able to discuss this issue with you today, but he will call you tomorrow. And this firm has now become one of the largest firms in San Diego County. It started with 1 office, 45 attorneys. It now has 3 offices, and they still sell that they're the most customer responsive firm in Southern California. And their customers know it because they've employed the principles that get them there. So we're now going to leave the conceptual part of this presentation, and we're going to get down and dirty. We're going to get to what's really practical. So you ought to ask yourself from this part of the presentation, do I have the mindset? Does this Ehrlich guy say anything that relates to who I am as an individual? And what are the takeaways? You got to create a compelling vision. That is practical. You've got to come up with a compelling vision. You got to work on a compelling vision. You got to be able to state that compelling vision with conviction, with passion, with purpose. You got to get your team to involve themselves in creating this vision, and you got to get your team to create a set of values that are consistent with this vision. So, for example, design is preeminent at Apple Corporation. They will never turn out a product that works functionally well but does not have great aesthetics. You know, when Apple came in, you know, you had this plain gray box that was a computer. And then you look at what he created, and you had these elegant looking machines. They worked just as well. They worked better than Windows. And the only problem is he charged an exorbitant amount of money, but people that were Apple nuts would pay for it. I didn't pay for it till about 8 years ago, and now I've turned into an Apple nut. You know why? Because I don't ever deal with tech support anymore. I haven't called tech support since I've gotten an Apple computer, because they just work. But also when they work, boy, that iMac just looks beautiful on my desk, doesn't it? I mean, instead of I had this Dell, it was this like ugly gray box, etc. You know, sitting under, you walk in the room and you see that beautiful silver iMac, and you just feel good. You got to communicate expectations clearly, and then if you're going to ask people to work real hard, you've got to monitor and you've got to reward their behaviors. How's everyone feeling? Is your weekend evening going okay? Are you saying, you know, can I get to the back door without him seeing me? Can I get out of here? I've got more important things to do. So I hope I'm keeping your attention. And now we're going to get to away from mindset and toward what I think is very practical in terms of your idea. So stick with me. Okay, you have an idea. Now, how are you going to determine whether that idea is an opportunity? Well, first of all, you've got to determine, do you have a favorable circumstance pointing to a need? That alone isn't going to get you there. After I started ventures as a kid, my first serious venture as an adult was a venture in the digital media industry. The only problem with it was 18 years ahead of its time. 18 years ahead of its time. So I was a complete failure. We raised investor money, and we lost all the investor money. Those investors, by the way, love to invest with me because they say, I already paid my tuition payment to you, so this, you know, I'll pay again. This is one thing, by the way, when we talk about culture, any culture that is going to have entrepreneurs has to tolerate failure. The Japanese have very few entrepreneurs. Does anybody know why? Anybody know why they have very few entrepreneurs? Pardon?
They are perfectionists.
Well, they are perfectionists, but that's not the reason. It's their perception of failure. Do you know what? Okay, I took $5 million from a set of investors and I failed, and I'm Japanese. What do I think? Yes? They don't tolerate change. Did you say? Change. That's exactly correct. That causes them to lose face. Do you know that in Japan, if you lose investors' money, you feel indebted to them for the remainder of your life? You feel that out of every wage that you earn, you better give them a portion of it? That you have shamed your family, you've shamed yourself. In the US, failure is a badge of honor. As a matter of fact, you'll find almost every entrepreneur that you talk to, they will tell you openly about their failure, and they'll be proud of it. And everywhere I go in the world, I always say, if you can't create a culture that tolerates mistakes, then it's very difficult to have entrepreneurs. Because entrepreneurship is not easy, and you're going to lose money. So we were in the digital media business. What were we doing? In 1995, we were taking an analog photo, so a physical photo, and converting it to a digital image. So we had to scan it. The scanner, of course, was going, you know, it took 20 minutes to scan a photo. There were no CD burners. We had to buy a CD burner. They're only in the commercial market. They were $5,000 a piece. There was no way to move content once you digitized the image to the CD unless you had a software engineer write code for the CD. There were no CD-RWs. There were no commercial consumer-based CDs. We knew that the DVD was coming to the market. We were in touch with Toshiba. We knew that we could get more content on a DVD, but because we were doing music, we were doing photos, and we were doing documents on CDs. And they take up a lot of space. We were talking to Toshiba, which introduced the first DVD to the US market. They were a year late. They missed the Christmas season, where we were counting on them to send us their authoring packages, etc. And they, for some reason, decided to delay the product launch, and they waited till the next Christmas season, which is a big season for selling in the US market. Spending another year without digital rights management software, without the right DVDs, etc. We had a decent lifestyle business going. We had venture investors that wanted to not have a lifestyle business. They weren't interested in my lifestyle. They were interested in their lifestyle. So we all decided to close the business down. And there were no hard feelings. Nobody ever had said a negative word to me, believe it or not. They thanked us for trying. And they're still my friends today. That's the difference. And again, I know a venture capitalist that says, I've lost millions on people. And I'll continue to invest with them if they learned from their mistakes. So it's learning from your mistakes. Actually, we're starting the company as we speak today. Because we don't think, oh, Photo has gotten it right. We don't think Snapfish has gotten it right. We don't think Shutterfly has gotten it right. We don't think Picasa has gotten it right. We don't think there's a good product in the market for the manipulation and organization of digital images in the cloud that allow you to develop content that's compelling for your family, for your friends, to tell your life story. Our business plan, by the way, called for a product that Facebook just introduced called Timeline. It talked about creating memories of your life on CD. And in the cloud, it's now being done by Facebook. So I still have the original business plan. As a matter of fact, we're tweaking the original business plan because nobody's quite done it. We're looking for investors right now, and we're going to launch the business, hopefully within the next 4 weeks, because the website is built, the product is built, and we hope to launch very soon. So you've got to be able to do something that's going to generate a profit. And in entrepreneurship, if you speak to a venture investor, they will tell you there's two kinds of ventures they'll invest in. One is a better, faster, cheaper venture, and the other is a brave new world. The iPad is a brave new world. Brave new worlds mean this is a new-to-the-world product that Steve Jobs didn't, no one told him to create the iPad. As a matter of fact, if you go back and you read articles on tablet computing, the market thought tablet computing was dead. There have been lots of tablet computers. Every one of them has failed. So they wondered, why is Steve Jobs going ahead and investing in tablet computing when it's dead? Steve Jobs doesn't listen to the customers. He goes out and he creates a compelling product that you never thought you wanted, you didn't think you need, and now you can't live without. We'll also talk about the iPod a little later when we talk about business models, because the whole iPod and the introduction of the iPod was a very unique business model. So you got to go fix your car. That's a job you have now. Go and get the car fixed. Is there a way that I can make fixing a car easier? Is there a way I can make balancing a checkbook easier? Quicken figured that one out. They decided the job of balancing a checkbook was too difficult to do manually, so they automated it. We now talk not in terms of customer needs so much, because I would advise you take a look at a book called The Innovator's Dilemma by a guy named Clayton Christensen. He's now put out a book called The Innovator's DNA. And what Clayton Christensen found was that companies that paid too much attention to their customers after the first introduction of their product began to make incremental improvements to the product as the customer asked for those. He studied the disk drive industry. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the companies that manufactured small format disk drives and displaced the companies that made large format disk drives, completely wiped the large format disk drive manufacturers out. Why? Because the 5 1/4-inch slot in your computer held a large format hard drive. So when the hard drive manufacturers would go to the computer manufacturers and say, what do you want? They go, we want a faster drive. They never said, we want a drive that goes in a smaller space, because they had their manufacturing with a 5 1/4-inch slot. So what these guys did is they said, we're going to miniaturize this thing. They were unobstructed. Remember, autonomous. Their orientation is we're autonomous. We don't have to be wedded to what the industry is wedded to. We're going to do something different. While the hard drive manufacturers were paying attention to their customers, and they weren't interested in listening to what might be breakthrough innovations. The innovator's dilemma is that the early innovators sometimes fall by the wayside because the smaller company is not impeded by an existing base. So they can ignore that. And they sometimes might fail, but that's why they introduce breakthrough innovations. And just like my digital media company, timing is critical. If we would have started the company 5 years ago, we would have been on the right track. We thought we were on the leading edge. We were on the bleeding edge. So we're going to get ready, and I think, is there another prayer time coming up soon? Is it now? Okay, let's take a break because we're going to move right toward an exercise. So this is a good time for a break.
الله يعطيكم العافية. بس الآن ناخذ بريك.